suicide, my depression, stress, suicide, my stress, depression, fear, suicide.
My name's Jonathan Rojas. I'm 23 years old, and I've suffered through severe depression and anxiety. My lifestyle growing up and my childhood growing up was really good. My parents were at every sporting event. They supported me with pretty much anything I wanted to do. They're real big sticklers on, not quitting, seeing everything through. I saw my childhood as pretty healthy. I had a best friend, played outside almost every day. He got bullied a little bit, but I mean, who doesn't? But I maybe wonder if that had something to do with it. So when I graduated from high school, I was pretty excited to go to college. I was pretty excited to have that freedom, to have that experience of, just pretty much doing everything on my own. But I think now looking back, I think I was a little bit scared of it too. Honestly, I had no idea what I wanted to do, and I just knew my parents, were helping me pay for school. Like I said, they were real supportive, so I wanted to do well in my classes. So I was feeling maybe a little bit of pressure from that. My first major setback going into college was, it was actually after the first semester. I had done really well in school. I had made a lot of friends, and I was driving back to school after winter break, and when I was about, I don't know, maybe half a mile from the school, from my dorm room, I experienced my first ever panic attack. I didn't really know what it was at the time, and it set me up for, well, what this video is going to be about. I didn't tell really anyone. My sisters knew, and my parents knew, and I think that was about it. I didn't really tell many people because at the time, with the stigma that society has on mental illnesses, I didn't feel like I could tell anyone because I was embarrassed to, because it's a tough situation to be in because you don't feel understood and you don't know if anyone else has been there. So I didn't really tell anyone else besides my close family until now. A lot of people have asked me if I was scared to go talk to a therapist about what was going on. I had done some research about if there was any kind of mental help on campus at UNT, and there indeed was, because apparently this is more common than most people think, or than I thought. After talking to the psychologist on campus, to successfully, overcoming this anxiety and depression was long. It was really long, about 6 months long, and there were a lot of ups and downs. With that said, I ended up taking Lexapro, which is antidepressant medication, for a little bit. After I started taking it, a couple days in, I started to feel like again, almost like the same time when I hadn't slept for 4 days, that really disconnected feeling. But when I was on the Lexapro, it was almost like quadrupled. I was disconnected with the outside world, but when I took the Lexapro, I felt really disconnected from myself. And at the same time I started taking Lexapro, suicidal thoughts started coming up too. And, that's, it was really scary for me. It led me to start believing these thoughts about ending my life. I just decided I'm gonna go for it. I'm gonna quit this antidepressant medicine cold turkey. So I stopped taking it without tapering off at all. I just stopped taking it, threw it in the trash, never refilled my prescription, and again, it was scary because I almost started to rely on that medicine, but it was the beginning of that was probably the best decision I ever made in my life, was throwing away that medicine. So I want to share a couple of stories just to illustrate just how severe this anxiety was and how crippling it was to my life and how much it was consuming me. So first off, maybe about a month into these anxiety attacks happening, I ended up leaving my dorm, and I was actually just living at my mom's for about a good 4 months. My mom, love you, Mom. My mom is she's a big advocate of tough love. You know, she's really compassionate. She'll be patient enough for a while, but when she feels like it's time, she's gonna tell you about it. You know, she came downstairs one day and talked to me, and she's like, "Hey, do you have a class to go to today?" And I was like, "Well, yes, I do." And she's like, "Well, I want you to go." So, you guys gotta remember, I had my first panic attack ever that started this whole ordeal in a car, driving by myself to school. So, the thought of driving by myself to school to go to class, to sit with people I don't know and I'm not comfortable with at all, it's almost ridiculous for me to think how scary it was for me now, but then it was almost like going to war for me. It was putting my life on the line. That's what it felt like. I ended up leaving and trying to go to school, and I make it not even 10 minutes down the highway, and the anxiety just consumes me. I just feel warmth, and I feel this like just this gigantic metaphoric cloud over my head of doubt, of just nervousness, of fear, just a lot of fear that I just can't control. It's just so irrational, and it's just making me I can't like escape it. It's just taking me everywhere. I stop, I pull over, I call my stepdad. I can't. My parents were so supportive at this time. He came, I called him, even though they probably didn't understand what was going on. He drove up there and literally followed me back in the car, you know, so I could feel safe to get back, and ended up not going to class that day, as you can imagine. But that's, for some reason, that's a story I really remember. So I don't necessarily know if they understood it, but I'm really grateful for them, because at the time, now that I'm looking back on it, it didn't seem like they were confused in what they were doing at all. Everything they did, everything they said, it really helped lead me to where I am today. And I'm kind of getting upset right now because I don't really know if I've ever thought about that until just now. You know, it's really easy to be proud of yourself when you get out of a hole as big as you did. And it's easy to forget all the people who were there for you to help you. So I'm just not realizing that. So to my parents, you know who you are. I just want to say thanks. During that time, at the peak, at the worst of it, I had multiple days where I was pretty suicidal. Just really hopeless, just waking up day in, day out, feeling the exact same way, feeling really disconnected from everybody when all I wanted to do was be connected with somebody. So at the time that the suicidal thoughts started getting more frequent and at their worst is when I really started getting scared, and I knew something needed to change now. I started researching, like, I kid you not, I researched 6 to 8 hours a day about how to achieve the greatest mental health the world has ever seen. I obsessed about it just day after day after day after day. In the middle of class, I'd be reading articles on happiness, on meditation techniques, on foods that were good for your mood, and on the best exercises that will help anxiety and depression. And I stumbled upon a recipe for me that worked out really well. It was just the thing I needed to free me of my anxiety and completely change my relationship with myself and my mind and the people around me. I came across this mindfulness-based meditation app called Headspace. I owe a big part of my life to that app, because it forever changed how I see the world, how I see myself, how I see my emotions and my feelings and my thoughts. It really was what took me over the top to cure myself of my anxiety and depression, and I can confidently say cure. So my tips to anyone who's suffering from anxiety or depression to any degree is first, get help. You got to make sure you're willing to get help, because if you aren't, it's really hard to do on your own. Number 2, start eating right. Start eating a lot of vegetables. Stick to only eating things that are on the outside aisles of the grocery store. It helps a lot more than you think it would. Number 3, exercise, exercise, exercise. Number 4, prioritize sleep. Sleep is really important for the overall maintenance and development and health of the brain. And anxiety starts in the brain. That's where it all is. Number 5, don't smoke pot, don't do drugs, don't drink alcohol. All the research I did, everything I always saw was that alcohol, marijuana, cigarettes, everything, it makes anxiety worse. 100% of the time, yeah, it might make your anxiety better when you're drunk or high, but after the fact, it's gonna always make it worse. So stay away from those things. The last tip would be, I really encourage you guys to meditate. There's nothing really religious about it. It's just sitting, reflecting within yourself about what you're feeling that day, what's going on, just where you are mentally. Once you become more aware of that, you're just more aware of how you're feeling on a day-to-day basis, and it benefits you pretty well.